Imagine a tiny island with no natural resources, no oil, no large farms, no minerals, just a small piece of land, a few people, and a lot of problems. In 1965, experts looked at this island and said, it will never survive. Today, the average person living there is richer than the average American. How is that even possible? This is the remarkable story of Singapore, and the one man who refused to let it die. Stay with me. I'm going to show you exactly how they turned nothing into one of the richest nations on Earth in a single generation. For centuries, Singapore was just a sleepy fishing village. Nothing special. Swampy, mosquito-infested, full of pirates. Then in 1819, a British adventurer named Stamford Raffles showed up and saw pure gold. This location is perfect, he declared. Right at the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, the choke point between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. Ships from Europe, India, and China had no choice but to pass through. It was like owning a toll booth on the world's busiest highway. Under British rule, the population exploded. Chinese, Indian, and Malay immigrants flooded in. Singapore became a bustling, diverse trading port. Everyone was getting rich, mostly the British, but you get the idea. Then came the nightmare that exposed everything. February 1942. Japanese forces invade. The British had built massive 15-inch naval guns pointed out to sea, bragging they were impenetrable. They'll never come from the jungle, they laughed. But the Japanese did exactly that. They marched through the impossible terrain, attacked from the north, and captured Singapore in just days. Winston Churchill called it the worst disaster in British military history. The impenetrable fortress had left its entire backside exposed. Life under Japanese occupation was brutal. Tens of thousands died. Food vanished. Singapore was renamed Saigonan, Light of the South. But for locals, it felt like the opposite of light. When the British finally returned in 1945, something had changed forever. The locals had watched the mighty empire crumble in a week. We want independence, they demanded. The British tried one last trick. Merge Singapore with Malaya, Sabah, and Sarawak to form Malaysia in 1963. It seemed smart on paper, Singapore's economy plus Malaysia's resources. It was a disaster almost immediately. Ethnic tensions exploded. Malaysia's leaders wanted policies favoring Malays. Lee Kuan Yew demanded a Malaysian Malaysia, equality for all races. Race riots broke out. People died. Tariffs were slapped on Singapore. Finally, on August 9, 1965, the Malaysian parliament voted to kick Singapore out. You're on your own, they said. Lee wasn't crying from joy. He was crying because he believed his tiny country was doomed. No natural resources, no fresh water, no army, high unemployment, racial tensions, surrounded by bigger neighbors who didn't like them. And the British military bases that provided thousands of jobs were about to leave. Lee looked at his team and said the words that would define everything. We have no choice. We either succeed or we die. Lee Kuan Yew realized Singapore had exactly one natural advantage: its location. So they doubled down on it. They transformed the sleepy port into one of the best in the world. Ships from everywhere started stopping. But that was just the beginning. Problem number one: water. Malaysia supplied most of it and could turn off the tap anytime. Lee's order: build reservoirs everywhere, cover the island in water catchment areas, use every rooftop, and start researching how to turn seawater into drinking water. They did exactly that, developing new water recycling technology that's now world-class. Next, the economy. Most developing countries in the 1960s were building walls, going self-sufficient, and telling foreign companies to leave. Lee called that stupid for a tiny island with no resources. We're going to do the opposite, he said. Become the most business-friendly place on Earth. They delivered. Zero corruption, low taxes, clear and simple rules, efficient courts, and a government that actually worked. Companies from all over the world flooded in. Factories rose, jobs exploded. Foreign investment poured like a tidal wave. They cleaned up the entire country with strict rules. Littering, heavy fines, vandalism, even heavier. Chewing gum, banned. The goal was simple: make Singapore so safe, clean, and orderly that people and businesses would trust it with their lives and money. Education became the ultimate weapon. If we have no resources, then our people must become the resource, Lee declared. Schools went up everywhere. English became the main language of instruction, neutral and perfect for global business. Heavy focus on math, science, and practical skills. Kids learned English plus their mother tongue. They became fluent bridges between East and West. Housing was the genius masterstroke. Most people lived in dangerous slums. Lee said, "This is unacceptable." The Housing Development Board built apartments at lightning speed, but they didn't just give them away. They created the Central Provident Fund, forced savings. Every worker's salary had a portion automatically saved. That money could be used to buy the government-built apartments. People owned their homes, they had skin in the game. The government recycled the funds to build more. By the 1980s, over 80% of Singaporeans lived in high-quality public housing they actually owned. It solved housing, retirement, and national pride in one brilliant move. Defense? They had almost nothing. So they made Singapore poisonous to swallow. Every able-bodied male serves in the military. It was 2 years mandatory. Yet they built one of the most advanced forces in Southeast Asia with modern weapons and training. No one would invade without paying a terrible price. Everything was designed for ruthless efficiency. World-class airports, ports, transport, predictable, trustworthy, stable. When global crises hit, oil shocks, financial crashes, pandemics, Singapore's strong reserves and disciplined planning kept it steady while others crumbled. The results were astonishing. The economy grew at double-digit rates for years. Incomes soared. Living standards transformed dramatically. By the 1990s, Singapore's GDP per capita had surpassed Britain, the empire that once ruled it. Today, it stands higher than the United States. Clean streets, near-zero crime, top-tier education. One of the busiest ports on Earth. An Asian tiger that left the world stunned. Lee believed in Asian values. Social harmony over individual chaos, order over disorder, collective good over personal liberty. Strict laws kept the media focused and opposition limited. Western critics called it authoritarian. Lee's reply was simple. Look at the results. Clean streets, low crime, booming economy, high literacy. You can have all the free speech you want in a failing country, or you can have prosperity and order. Most people choose prosperity. Was he right? Was he wrong? That debate continues, but the results are undeniable. In 2015, Lee passed away at 91. The entire nation mourned. People queued for hours to pay respects. He had taken a resource-poor island everyone thought was doomed and turned it into one of the most successful countries on Earth. Yet Singapore still faces new challenges. An aging population, low birth rates, expensive housing, and the question of how to keep its unique model alive in the age of social media and globalization. But one thing is certain, its rise from zero to hero is one of the most remarkable stories in modern history. So why did this tiny island become richer than the United States per capita? Because they used what they had extremely wisely. They turned their location and their people into their greatest strengths. They focused on education, discipline, long-term thinking, zero corruption, and making it ridiculously easy for businesses to succeed. They saved for the future instead of spending everything today. Strong leadership, smart policies, and relentless discipline proved that size is not everything. Lee Kuan Yew's famous line captures it perfectly. We had no choice. We either succeeded or we died. Singapore shows the world that with the right vision, even the smallest country can become an economic powerhouse. The hidden truth? Wealth isn't about what you start with. It's about what you do with it. And the discipline to never accept failure. If you found this story useful and want more simple but powerful explanations about money, countries, wealth secrets, and how real power is built, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Drop a comment below. What lesson from Singapore do you find most powerful? Thanks for watching, friends. Stay disciplined, stay smart. See you in the next one.